Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It is the day after the BC Leaders Debate. We'll bring you some of the highlights, and we're asking you what moments stood out for you. If you're undecided, did anything the leaders said move the needle for you? Are you already decided in your vote? Call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can just hit pound 690 on your phone. You can also email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Last night's debate was seen as an attempt to appeal to undecided voters, and all three leaders took their chance to land attacks against their opponents. NDP leader David Eby portrayed Conservative leader John Rustad as an anti-vaccine climate change denier. Rustad said the NDP allowed tent cities to grow and crime to rise. Meanwhile, Green leader Sonia Furstenau attacked them both for lacking a long-term vision, saying her party is the only one offering hope. Affordability and climate action featured in the debate, and the three leaders sparred over the carbon tax.
We are going to cut the carbon tax by getting rid of the carbon taxes in British Columbia. That will save $1,200 for a family today. And yet David Eby, he wants to actually double the carbon tax in his next term. That is what he has said he will do. And so this is the reality we're facing in British Columbia. That is more money just in the carbon tax saving alone than what he is proposing with his taxes. And for him to come out and say that $900 right away for the Rustad rebate in terms of the rent and in terms of mortgages, those are people, hardworking people in British Columbia that will get that benefit right away. And I wish we could bring the whole thing in, except that the fiscal mismanagement and a $14 billion deficit being proposed by David Eby will take away the future of people.
You seem to want to respond. Well, I don't even know where to start here, Shachi. John Rustad can't get rid of the carbon tax because of the federal backstop. He also is not telling you the full story about his Rustad long wait, that you don't actually see a benefit until at the earliest 2026, and then only if you own your home or if you have high rental costs. If you're living in a rural part of British Columbia and you have low rent, you see the least amount of benefit. And that's why there's a guy with an $80 million house in my constituency that loves John Rustad. But I'm on your side.
That's why
you and your families at home, to make sure you get access to immediate benefit from the tax cut.
Look, we have
not
the largest,
2 years from now, not 5 years from now,
We have the
right
largest, probably most violent hurricane lining up off the coast of Florida, and we have two leaders retreating from climate action in this province.
We would love to hear from you. What moments in Tuesday's election debate stood out for you? And if you are an undecided voter right now, was there anything you heard that may have moved the needle for you? Did the election debate matter to you? You can call us, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 or email bctoday@cbc.ca. Moira is calling us from Wendell. Hi, Moira.
Hi, how are you doing?
I am well. Did you watch the debate or listen to the debate?
Yeah, I listened to the debate on CBC for a little while, and I was very unimpressed. They didn't cover anything of substance, not really.
What were you hoping to hear?
About the BC packing cooperative that's just gone under. That's incredibly important to people in Creston and across the province, because without those, the BC packing, buying fruit and then packing it and shipping it internationally, we have then an American system that comes into Canada and just gives nothing for the BC fruit growers, and it'll be a disaster for Canada. We built the cooperative because America did come up here and destroy things. So they didn't discuss that at all. Okay.
Moira, you're a fruit grower yourself.
No, I'm not, but I live in an area where there's a lot of fruit growing, and I've seen what happened with the cherry crop that didn't happen this year
peaches.
and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been disastrous. And we have climate change that's just destroying so much of the fruit growing systems and things like that. So, it's an incredibly important topic, and I think it really needs to be discussed.
There have been... Go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I'm wondering, in terms of what you heard when it comes to support for agriculture, or as you just mentioned, climate change, and how those might affect something like that, the tree fruit co-op.
Well, I think that my take on climate change is caused by thermal pollution, which is heat pollution, which was studied in 1980s, which I read about, and I think it's much more a valid idea for climate change or instability, as I call it, because heat from bodies, heat from fossil fuels is sunlight, basically, going back into the planet, which already gets the sunlight from the sun. So you're adding sunlight to sunlight. So it's a dynamic system, which it builds on each other because the mesosphere doesn't allow much of the heat Earth to be radiated into space. Anyway,
do you think it's at a crisis level then when it comes to the impact it's having?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This past winter was just devastating in Creston. We had the worst weather. It's unbelievable the anomalous weather we've had in Creston and Wendell. It just destroyed the fruit trees. It's been really, really anomalous. And I call it climate instability because it's not change. Change happens. But instability is what we're having globally. I mean, they had that flood in Nepal. They had flood in Tennessee. Or in North Carolina. It's accelerating, and it's going to continue accelerating until we deal with heat as a pollutant, not carbon dioxide, because heat is an energy.
Okay, so anyway, I think most of the science says though it's greenhouse gases, right?
Well.
Yeah, I think we may.
Okay.
We go. Okay, so I'll just for the record just say that the science is about GHGs. But Moira in Wendell concerned about the impact of climate change on the agriculture industry, and she's also concerned about the BC Tree Fruit Co-op, and it did not come up yesterday that I can remember. There was a mention from Sonia Furstenau about, I think from moderator Shachi Curl asking a question and including no peaches this past year. We're taking your calls, asking you what stood out for you in the leaders' debate last night. And if you're undecided right now, was there something that perhaps is moving the needle for you? Was there something you were hoping to hear that you didn't? And that you would like to highlight and keep putting on the table? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. If you'd like to email us, it's bctoday@cbc.ca. 12:13 Pacific time. Yesterday, we asked you what you wanted to hear in the leaders' debate, and Pat wrote us, question for all candidates. Are you in favor of vacancy control? And if so, will you vigorously support a mechanism to adjust rental rates so that rents currently well below market rates can be brought up to match that rate? Charles writes, it's atrocious that Riverview Mental Institution was closed down. I would like to see a politician who can take leadership toward recognizing that mental health is a significant contributor to the growth of people living on the streets we now see throughout BC. Proper care and rehabilitation for this segment of society needs to be addressed through centralized mental health care. Non-voluntary admission to that care would take the pressure off hospital, police, and social services and provide proper care. Stop the cruelty. Gail writes from Prince George, what are they doing for our aging seniors, which starts at 55? I'm 61 and looking for housing. Janet in Vancouver writes, I'd like the question to be asked to David Eby if he's on the side of Ken Sim to dismantle the Vancouver Park Board. What is their position on this? Linda writes from Comox, I'm interested in hearing a leader who speaks with conviction and evidence and not indiscriminate accusations. Liz writes from Esquimalt, my main concern is mental health funding for care and treatment in BC. I'd like to hear the party's plans in regard to this issue. Thanks to all of you for your emails. bctoday@cbc.ca. This is BC Today, and today is the day after the BC Party Leaders debate. The election, of course, on October 19th, next Saturday. We are asking you, what were the debate moments that stood out? If you're undecided, did you hear anything that convinces you? any which way. Call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And Chris is on the line in Vancouver. Hi, Chris. What were you hoping to hear in the debate?
Something to do with jobs, and they didn't have any issue there. They bypassed the problem with BC Ferries wanting to take all the ship construction jobs offshore to some foreign country. And that was good high-paying jobs being sent away. That's a sin.
And are you a longshoreman or pardon me?
I used to work in the shipyards.
In the shipyards, yeah. And so that hits you close to home. Then looking for a job. And so, what about the future of what's your future here? You know, we kept hearing from John Rustad that people are wanting to leave. Something that he likes to repeat, that half of young people want to leave BC. Is that something kind of you're feeling, or?
You know, if they want to leave BC. It's probably because they don't get the proper training to work in places like the shipyards, construction, things like that. You know, if they're looking for work, they need the training, but we don't have the training for them, and we don't have the jobs for them.
Is there anyone, I don't know if you've looked into the platforms or heard any comments from the leaders. Has there been anything you've heard that kind of goes to that question of jobs?
Not really.
So you're not feeling very, very good about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Chris, thank you very much for highlighting that discussion around jobs in British Columbia. Let's go to Chris now in Victoria. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. Thanks very much. What stood out for you, or what didn't stand out for you in the debate?
Yeah, primarily what stood out was I went into the debate not really 100% sure of who I was going to support and wanted to hear a lot of what these people had to say, the candidates. And for me personally, John Rustad basically came through the way I expected him to come through, completely out of touch, no actual plan, a ton of rhetoric with very little substance, and on par with even though I know they're not specifically affiliated, on par with what the federal Conservatives seem like to me, and especially his comments on bringing back plastic straws because people didn't like paper straws struck me as particularly irresponsible and just totally out of touch with what's going on in today. And then listening to David Eby, he was a little bit better, at least generally reasonable in a lot of the comments that he was making, but, you know, spent a lot of his time just basically trying to trash John Rustad and just kind of differentiate what they're doing compared to what the Conservatives would do. I thought that Sonia Furstenau was amazing, and she seemed to be the only one that seemed to have a strong platform and seemed to talk sense about a plan that would actually result in the benefit of BC's populations. And I thought it was really interesting, her final comment. She wasn't even asking, you know, to get enough votes to win the election. She was just asking to get enough votes to be able to not have a majority government, to be able to, you know, have some kind of say in the decisions that, you know, these other jokers seem to be making to me. So, you know, I'll definitely be voting Green after watching that.
Okay.
I hope a lot of other people do too.
Chris, thank you very much. Let's hear some of Sonia Furstenau from last night. Here she is attacking John Rustad for his perspectives on truth and reconciliation.
It's fascinating to me that John Rustad's vision for this province is one that's rooted somewhere around 1957. I mean, he cannot look ahead because he can only look back. He is so limited in his imagination of what's possible. And when it comes to reconciliation, when it comes to sorting out rights and title, what we have to do, the hard but essential work we have to do, all John Rustad can do is look back to when he was Minister of Indigenous Relations, and what he wanted to do was visit First Nations that had golf courses. He is not seriously taking this issue and recognizing the serious work of a provincial government is not to politicize this, not to make people afraid, but to recognize that to move forward, to create economic certainty, to create economic prosperity for everybody in BC, this issue has to be sorted out.
That's Sonia Furstenau speaking last night, Tuesday night at the debate. And just going through some of the platforms here, we had Chris from from Vancouver earlier, talking about he really wanted to hear about jobs and that it wasn't discussed much in the debate last night. Just looking through some of the party platforms here, the NDP saying they would create good-paying, sustainable jobs, expand training opportunities for family-supporting jobs while fighting climate change. They are highlighting BC Hydro's competitive call for power and seeing investments in that, and saying that will create up to 1,500 jobs in construction annually. And the Greens are saying with smart choices over the next few years, we can build a thriving, clean energy economy, attract investment, and provide good jobs. And the Conservatives do not have their platform out yet. They've talked about the economy in the past as part of their priorities. So just going through some of what we've heard outside of the debate when it comes to jobs. Taking your calls, asking you what stood out for you in Tuesday night's Leaders Debate, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And Tony is calling us now from Burnaby. Welcome, Tony.
Hi, thanks for taking the call.
Sure.
Yeah, what stood out for me is that nobody talked about childcare, and the $10 a day and the push for subsidized daycare. It discriminates against all the rest of us who don't want to use that, don't use that kind of care, can't use it, don't want it, which is the majority. So the discrimination against those of us, the kids and the parents and the moms who don't want to use that kind of care. Also, I found recently on the government website that they've created about 40,000 new funded daycare spaces, but nearly 20,000 of those are not operational, meaning they're not even being used. So the non-discussion about daycare, which is a huge issue for many people, and they're putting so much money into this, but it's going to so few people, and so I was disappointed that wasn't discussed.
Okay, yeah, and so you're looking more for private funding for families.
No, for funding directly to families. That
Yeah.
child care is the care of a child, but the government says no, child care is not what parents do. So the funding would go directly to families, so that parents can make up their minds what suits them and their family and their needs and their beliefs and all the rest of it, without piling literally like $1 billion or something in BC onto like one particular kind of care or a limited kind of options. It's just not fair.
And what is this an issue for you personally then in your
Yeah.
home? Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I look after my own kids, and that doesn't count as, I'm a single parent, doesn't count as child care according to government, so you don't get any money for that. But if I put my kid in the daycare center, the daycare center will get all kinds of funding. Well, you just enroll them, even if the kid's not actually attending because they're sick or they're doing something else. So the money goes to the center or to the system, but doesn't go to the parent. So it's like, what do they think we are? Child liver? Like they say that if you're looking after your own kid, you're not working. Well, it is work, and I do paid work, I do unpaid work. But so why are they discriminating against the kids and the parents and the women who don't use that form of care? What is it you don't like about parents? And I'd like to hear that from all the parties because they all support this discriminatory funding mechanism.
Let me, Tony, thank you very much, and I appreciate your sharing your personal situation there and what you're looking for to support yourself and your family. Thanks for the call.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Take care. That's Tony in Burnaby. And let's go now to Ira in Hazelton. Hi there, Ira.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thanks so much for calling in. And what stood out for you in the debate, or what were you looking for?
Well, I was calling in regards to that you guys just aired there about the Truth and Reconciliation.
Yes.
The Truth and Reconciliation is very crucial to Canada with the Indigenous people, and for them to actually say that they're going to get rid of UNDRIP. UNDRIP is law, and when law is broken, people need to be held accountable for their actions and held liable. And for them to say that they're going to get rid of UNDRIP, it's just, it was just implemented like 4 or 5 years ago, and just wow, that's like a slap in the face to the First Nations people. We stand behind our laws, we stand behind our rights, and we stand for the land, we stand for freedom, we stand for our rights to the land, and if they just decide to actually get rid of this, it's going to be so crucial to our way of life. We won't have anything. What do we have right now? We have nothing but UNDRIP and reconciliation and Belgamu. Everything that we have is what we need right now here in Canada. And for them to actually say that is just wrong on so many levels. We need to stand together and hold ourselves together with this government and hold this government accountable for their actions.
Ira, what John Rustad focused on last night, and what he has been focused on is this idea of economic reconciliation and enabling projects that benefit First Nations. What do you think of that?
Reconciliation is so important to us as well, too. We have to reconcile, of course. We have to reconcile. If there's no reconciliation, then we have nothing as well. We have to sit at the table and reconcile with the government and actually come to some terms and come to some agreements. And if we don't reconcile, we're going to be set back again back to primitive time again, and this is uncalled for. I'm so disappointed with the government right now that nothing is moving forward. Nothing. I'm just so disappointed.
Ira, really good to hear from you. Thank you very much for your call.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
That's Ira joining us on the line. Let's hear from another clip now, more from the leaders from last night's debate. John Rustad defended his party's health plan and said David Eby was being misleading about the BC Conservatives' policies.
We need to clear the air here. We're going to be adding about $3.8 billion in healthcare spending over the next 3 years. David Eby continues to perpetuate a lie, and I just wanted to be clear on that. When it comes to seniors and what needs to be done with seniors care in this province, we've laid out a very comprehensive plan. Everything from building more long-term care facilities in this province, a commitment of 5,000 new beds, but more than that, we need to work with seniors and we need to work with families to be able to support them at home. That's why we're going to create tax credits that are available. We're going to expand services at home.
Meanwhile, David Eby had a response to that. Let's hear that.
It's hard to listen to John Rustad. He was in government for 16 years, and seniors who lived in long-term care homes didn't get a bath once a week. The vast majority of long-term care homes didn't meet even minimum provincial standards for care and dignity. And now he says, if you send me back, I'm going to be different this time. I'm not going to cut the healthcare system. I'm not going to fire the workers who care for the seniors. The largest firing of healthcare workers happened when John Rustad was in government, and he voted for it against seniors.
All right, let's take another call now here. That's David Eby speaking last night. And our next caller is Shelley in Coquitlam. Hi, Shelley. Your thoughts on the debate last night?
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me on this show today. I don't think anybody's going to find perfection in any party. Politics clearly doesn't work. We don't have a lot to choose from, which is unfortunate. And me losing my son 2 years ago to this opioid crisis, he was 31 years old. His name was Cody. I want to hear people advocating for how we're going to fix homelessness and this crisis that the drugs are flowing onto our streets. Mr. Eby has done nothing over the 7 years that he's been around. I've seen an increase. I work all over the downtown east side, all over the lower mainland, and I've just seen more homelessness, more misery, and young people need to feel like they are, like they matter, right? If we don't invest in our young people, they are going to become drug addicted and homeless themselves. And we don't need more harm reduction. It's clearly not working, okay? I just cannot stress enough. We can't get nothing's going to be perfect. No politician is going to be perfect. But the increase in homelessness and the cost of living is causing addiction. It's causing stress. It's causing, for everybody, for First Nations, for every race. It's not, addiction doesn't discriminate. So we've got to get people housed. Thank you.
Shelley, thank you so much, and thank you for telling us about your son. I'm sorry for your loss. That's Shelley joining us from Coquitlam. Now, we did hear from the leaders last night about safe consumption, and they debated the merits of the NDP's initiatives over the past 7 years.
David Eby, we have seen in some of these safe supply locations, we have actually seen people arrested and distributing drugs in those facilities. These sort of things need to be shut down when that happens. We have to have a zero tolerance policy for this type of an approach in British Columbia. He has done nothing. He has not even addressed the facilities where there was a problem like that. And the police had to go in and seize the drugs and arrest people.
British Columbians need to know where you stand on these issues. When you go and you call them drug dens and you say, I'm going to close all the overdose prevention sites to one community, and then you go to another community and you say something, when you're talking to a guy whose life was saved 5 times, let me finish, John, this is important. When you're talking to a guy whose life was saved 5 times at an overdose prevention site, and you tell him, actually, don't worry, we're not going to close them, we're just going to change the name, that kind of disingenuous politics is exactly what we don't need in the toxic drug crisis.
What we need to be doing here is where you have somebody who ODs and is brought back to life. Clearly, they are not making the right decisions for themselves. We need, as a government, to be able to be compassionate about it and get them into treatment,
These
get them into involuntary
on
treatment,
people
so that
not
they can
being served
be able
by
to
the
recover.
systems that should have prevented these crises. These two want to focus on the worst place that people can be in crisis: homeless, in despair, using substances that are so dangerous. What they don't want to focus on is the lack of investments under the BC Liberals, the cutting back of services that got us here. And they don't want to focus on the fact that for the last 7 years, the NDP have not responded to this crisis in a way that actually averts it. I want us to have a war on poverty. I want us to address the social conditions that are creating these outcomes. I want us to make sure that in BC, we don't have Lamborghinis driving down a road where people are living on the streets. These are solvable problems. We just haven't had the political will to either prevent them or solve them from either of these two parties.
We'll bring you more moments from the debate last night. I just want to offer some, from what I'm seeing on the platforms as well, some details on childcare plans, because that's something that Tony, our caller from Coquitlam, raised, that she hadn't heard anything about childcare. So the Green Party's platform says they would develop a universal, accessible, and well-compensated early childhood education system, including universal funding to reduce administrative burdens regarding providers to allow them to focus on care, and ensuring ECEs have gradual increases to wages and access to pension plans and extended health benefits. The NDP say they would build new childcare spaces as they continue to expand the $10 a day childcare model over the next few years. They plan to keep going and adding childcare spaces, and they're making a $500 million investment to add affordable and accessible childcare spaces as well. And the Conservatives say they would expand $10 a day childcare by ending the funding bias against independent providers and enabling them to open more spaces immediately, and prioritize access to those most in need by making $10 spaces available to the kids who have fewest alternatives, and emphasizing that it's not a one-size-fits-all. All right, so some details there from the party platforms on childcare. We'll bring you more from the debate and more of your calls on what stood out for you last night. That's coming up after the CBC News Update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. There are only 10 days left until BC's provincial election, but voters can head to the polls early. Advance voting locations will be open tomorrow until Sunday, then next Tuesday and Wednesday. Voting starts from 8 in the morning until 8 at night. The Vancouver Park Board has approved the next phase of tree cutting in Stanley Park. An earlier assessment of the hemlock looper moth says about 160,000 of the park's 600,000 trees are dead or dying, but only a fraction of those will be removed. The work will start this month and finish next year. And officials say removing what's left of the landmark Red Bridge in Kamloops could take a few more months. The Transportation Ministry has determined last month's fire caused extensive structural damage. Work utilizing cranes, barges, and heavy equipment is expected to last through the winter. And now the BC forecast on the north coast. Showers this afternoon with a risk of a thunderstorm and highs up to 11. Highs around 12 with a mix of sun and cloud in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, mainly cloudy with a high of 9. Highs to 17 and cloudy in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, mainly cloudy with a high of 20. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with highs around 16. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
Hang in there. It's going to be a busy couple of weeks leading up to the election. So I know we're preparing here for our special election night as well. So there you go.
Yeah, we're getting close.
We are getting close. We've gone through the hurdle of the debate. So that's just finished, and we're assessing and reflecting on that. Now moving on to covering the election itself. So it's exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, always.
Rob, thanks so much.
You bet.
Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Thanks for joining us here on CBC Radio 1, television, and live streaming as well. And lots more on the day's top stories. And in Metro Vancouver, here's what's coming up on the coast.
Hi there, Michelle. It's Gloria Makarenko here with some good reasons to tune in to On the Coast this afternoon. Now, you may recognize Laura Ramoso from online videos as she portrays the characters German mother and Italian dad. Ramoso is a sketch comedy writer and a performer, so she's going to join us to discuss her live comedy show hitting Vancouver this week. And Surrey announces tougher fines for fireworks ahead of Halloween and Diwali. So we're going to look at this whole issue of fireworks safety with the head of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs. And for some musical distraction, our That Tracks panel is going to be here with a Lido Pimienta song. They'll give us their take ahead of her concert here in Vancouver. So join us for On the Coast between 3 and 6.
Polaris winner, Lido Pimienta. Excited for that. I love the That Tracks column that's coming up on the Coast this afternoon. This is BC Today, live on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming as well on CBC Jam on YouTube. Just find us CBC Vancouver, and on CBC News BC, which is our fast streaming channel. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks for being with us on all those platforms. Any of those platforms, we are talking about Tuesday night's provincial party leaders debate, asking what moment stood out for you. If you're undecided, did you hear anything that moved the needle? Or was there something you were hoping to hear and did not? Call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well, or email bctoday@cbc.ca. CBC's provincial affairs reporter Katie DeRosa covered last night's debate.
I was watching the debate looking for what leaders were putting forward, whether it was factual, whether it's grounded in, either their platforms or where they were coming from. One interesting thing that John Rustad said today is to illustrate how deadly the opioid crisis has been. He said he saw a person who died of an overdose on the street at the corner of Hornby and Robson. We did check with Vancouver Police and BC Health Services to find out if that's accurate. We haven't been able to confirm that, but I think it was just a point that Rustad was trying to make about the opioid crisis. David Eby turned that into an attack against Rustad for his position on what Rustad has called drug dens, now safe consumption sites. Eby said Rustad keeps changing his position. First, he promised to close all safe consumption sites. Now today, Rustad said he would not close them, but they have to be gateways to treatment. So that was some of the shifting positions we saw from Rustad. Sonia Furstenau got some good points when she said that Rustad's vision of BC is one that is dark and gloomy and is not one of hope. So that was sort of the message that Sonia Furstenau was trying to portray. And overall, I would say the party leaders addressed whether or not they were adding to the polarization that we've seen in British Columbia. David Eby said that he doesn't want to be talking about conspiracy theories, but John Rustad is bringing up anti-vax positions, anti-climate science. John Rustad says he's not anti-vax, he is anti-mandate, so a bit of back and forth over his positions there. But, overall, it was a broad focus. One other thing that David Eby brought up was that none of John Rustad's campaign promises are backed by financial reality. So that was another thing that we will have to fact check in the coming days, is the cost of some of these promises. So overall, it was an interesting debate, and we'll have to see how voters decide on October 19th.
That is the CBC's Katie DeRosa. And we are taking your calls, your reaction to what you heard in the debate or what you didn't hear when we're hoping to. I'd love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And we also got lots of emails on this and what people were expecting yesterday on the program. Kate writes from Nanaimo, as a person with a disability living in BC, my top issue is securing affordable housing. The NDP have been making record investments in subsidized housing, which benefits multiple income brackets, including mine. However, I've been on the wait list with BC Housing for the last 4.5 years, and so far, no offers. John Rustad has explained he believes the government has no role in building housing. I hope he strongly considers this position because it is not practical for people who are on disability, living below the poverty line, to pay anywhere near market value for rent. I hope no matter which political party gets into power, they understand the grave importance of secure housing for people with disabilities. And we have an email from Scott as well, who writes, there are no parties that mention the elephant in the room. The pandemic impacts affordability by costing trillions in lost productivity and ongoing care costs. The Greens' free bus plan might backfire since TransLink is doing less than 2020 COVID transmission mitigation. It may turn into an excellent transmission medium. However, the rest of the parties are worse. The NDP has mishandled the pandemic. People don't even realize that they have no liability insurance for transmission of a disease that causes long-term disability and death. At least the Greens are more or less science-based, and climate change matters now or sometime in the future. Thank you so much for your emails, and you can keep sending them to us, bctoday@cbc.ca, or you can call us on the line, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950, 604-66, or hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Let's hear some more from the leaders now. David Eby last night attacked John Rustad's past comments on COVID vaccines.
John Rustad and his candidates were providing donations to people who were protesting outside of hospitals, anti-vax convoy members. He's still an anti-vaxxer. He appeared in front of a group of people that called the so-called, you called it the so-called COVID vaccine. You said you wish you'd never been vaccinated.
That's just not true.
And then when someone said, do you think that public health professionals should be tried like Nazi war criminals? You said, well, we wouldn't do that in BC, but we would support an international effort to do that, John. It's embarrassing. You know, I wouldn't fire Bonnie Henry. I'm trying to hire you and your family a family doctor. We've connected 250,000 people to family doctors. We've got so much more to do. But if you think that we'll be safer in our province with someone who doesn't believe that vaccines work in charge of things?
Thank you very much, Sachi. The reality is I'm triple vaccinated. The reality is in British Columbia, I also promoted and supported people getting vaccinated, especially for seniors in our communities. I was supportive of that. However, I am not anti-vax. I am anti-mandate. I believe that people should have choice. It shouldn't be thrust upon them and forced upon them or coerced to be able to take a vaccine.
You never know which John Rustad's going to show up.
Meanwhile, John Rustad attacked the NDP's record on healthcare and highlighted one example of a patient who suffered a miscarriage.
There was a lady. She was in labor. She went into the hospital, and she miscarried in the washroom and sat there covered in blood, waiting for hours for services in an emergency room. That is David Eby's healthcare in BC. And quite frankly, it really tears me apart and it makes me upset.
And on the opioid crisis, Sonia Furstenau says David Eby is selective on when he takes the advice of Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry.
It's interesting that David Eby says he listens to Bonnie Henry when it comes to COVID and when it comes to that public health emergency, but he rejects her advice when it comes to this public health emergency that has claimed 15,000 people's lives. There needs to be a regulated pharmaceutical alternative to the toxic drugs that are being distributed by organized crime in our streets, and that's the advice from the provincial health officer to this government.
That's Sonia Furstenau, and before that you heard David Eby and John Rustad during last night's debate. Let's take another call here on what you were hoping to hear or what you heard and stood out for you in the provincial leaders' debate. And Keith is calling us from Chetwynd. Hi, Keith. Welcome.
Hello. How's it going today?
Very well. Good to hear from you. What did you want to share?
Good. I would have liked to have heard more about the forest industry. Like, I work in the forest industry. I've been in the forest industry for over 30, almost 40 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lost 24 mills in BC. And that's all due to NDP policies. That, you got towns like Vanderhoof and Fraser Lake where the sawmill is all they had, and they're gone. Those towns are going to end up being ghost towns. British Columbia is the most expensive place in the world to log now. They're just killing us. Like, Camphor's leaving British Columbia. They shut down the mill in Chetwynd and Fort St. John and Bear Lake. And, like, if the NDP get in again, I'm leaving BC.
Okay.
My nephew lived in Vancouver. Him and his wife, they couldn't afford to live there. They've gone back to Alberta. My son lived in Vancouver. He couldn't afford to live there. Had to come back up to Fort St. John. Like, it's ridiculous. We can't afford it. If the NDP gets in again, the forest industry in BC is probably going to die. And I'm going to have to move to Saskatchewan, probably. So there you go.
You don't see a future here if you're working in the
No,
forest
I
industry.
don't see a future here. With an NDP government, I don't. Conservatives get in, probably have a bit of a chance. But not with an NDP government. And they've had 7 years. The fentanyl crisis, the tent cities, like this province, this isn't the same place I grew up in anymore. It's going down the toilet. And I'll leave. My nephew's already left. And like the stats say that, 2 out of 3 young people are leaving British Columbia now.
Keith, thank you very much for the call from Chetwynd, speaking about the forest industry and his hopes to revitalize it, but saying that hasn't happened under the NDP. Thank you for your call. That's Keith joining us from Chetwynd. Thanks for all of your calls on your reviews of the election debate last night. You can keep sending us your thoughts. BC Today at cbc.ca. Secret to success is a question many people have tried to answer. And joining us now is someone who seemed to know how to make it in the business world. In fact, he's made it more than once. Brian Scudamore is the founder and CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And he is also the newest dragon to join CBC's Dragon's Den for its 19th season. And Brian joins me. Hi there, Brian.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on this new position, Dragon's Den. What made you want to do that?
Well, it's exciting and true story. It's my first job ever. I've always been self-employed, and now the CBC hired me to be a dragon.
You have a boss?
I have a boss now, and you know what got me doing this is what an incredible platform to inspire Canadian entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurship is one of my favorite things in the world. And if I can talk about it and broadcast my passion for entrepreneurship with the rest of Canada and inspire people to maybe take the leap if they're thinking about it, then it's something very much worth doing.
It's a value, isn't it? That sense of entrepreneurship. I see it all around me here in Vancouver. I look at all the small restaurants, for example, small businesses around me. What about you? What got you started on your path?
Well, I was in a small business mindset, trying to figure out, how do I pay for college? I was going to college so that I could be trained as an entrepreneur or work in corporate Canada, who knows? But I knew I wanted to be in business, and I had to fund my way through college because my parents weren't going to help me out. And I was in a McDonald's drive-through of all places. I saw a beat up old pickup truck with plywood side panels built up on the box. And I looked at that truck and I went, that's my ticket. I'm going to go spend the $1,000 life savings that I had, bought my own truck, created a company that back in the day was called the Rubbish Boys, soon to be rebranded as 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and got out there and talked my way into college, funded my own way. And 3 years into my 4-year degree, I dropped out, which was not a conversation that went well with my dad at the time. He couldn't imagine, as someone who's a liver transplant surgeon, why would his oldest son decide to pursue junk removal full time and quit college? But it certainly paid off in the end.
Absolutely. It's remarkable to think it was that one aha moment for you. What kind of, pardon me, what kind of, I guess, gumption does it take to say, yeah, you know, it could have been a fleeting thought, right? What if there was a company that actually dealt with this? And what kind of tenacity did it take for you to actually pursue it to the level of success that it's had?
Well, the tenacity didn't come in that moment. It certainly came years later when, as a new entrepreneur, I realized some of the challenges of starting a business.
Right.
It's not easy out there pounding the pavement and trying to drive revenue. It's not easy to find and train great people. 5 years into my business, I fired my entire company because I didn't have the right people. As a leader, I didn't know how to find and train the right people and needed to learn some hard lessons. That's when the tenacity kicked in. And 35 years later, we're 2,000 plus trucks across Canada, the United States, and Australia, with 3 different brands: 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Shack Shine, and Wow One Day Painting. So it's, you know, I think as an entrepreneur, you've always got to be tenacious. And there's moments where you just look in the mirror and go, can I still do this? You're driven by building a business that's all about people. That, I think, makes a difference in the end.
It's a challenging time for small businesses right now with inflation. There had been the rising interest rates, resources, finding people to employ. What's your advice to someone who's in the middle of that right now?
Well, on Dragon's Den, we filmed an entire season in 10 days, and we met 100 different pitchers. And these entrepreneurs all came in, and they didn't see the challenges. They see the opportunities. So it's a mindset. My advice is, how do you see the world? Do you see that there's opportunities every single day in everything you do? If you can, that's, I think, one of the most successful things behind entrepreneurs who make it, is the ability to see a challenge and go, okay, how will we overcome that? And what's next? And you keep on going and going. And, you know, if I look at 35 years of doing this, one thing I love about business, every day is different. I've got great people that are in this with us trying to solve problems and seize all the opportunities. And that's what makes it so fun.
Okay, can you tell me, were there any businesses and business ideas that kind of just did not fly with you?
You know, I was surprised. CBC and their producers on Dragon's Den do a really good job vetting out any of the bad ideas. It isn't sort of the American Idol, bring someone who's a terrible singer and put them up on stage so that the world can laugh at them.
Right.
They brought really, really good business opportunities. There were very few that I just didn't have some sense of, okay, you know, you're an entrepreneur and you believe in what you're doing. It was more the people who weren't able to execute that I believed would keep their small business small. So if someone's looking to grow, what are they doing to develop themselves as a leader? What are they doing to find the mentorship and the support? What are they doing to solve problems every day? And one of the problems in entrepreneurship is we often get in our own way. If we're the smartest person in the room, then I think we're in the wrong room. I did see some entrepreneurs who really believe they were the smartest person in the room, and I think ultimately they won't succeed unless they can get past that.
I suppose it also brought you back to when you were starting out 35 years ago. And so did you get a sense of, what kinds of new ideas and creativity is up and coming right now? Kind of, a look into the future of business in Canada.
Well, I think with social media, with all the possibility to connect to new ideas and new ways of doing things, what I did learn coming out of the den was I came out inspired. You think, okay, the beverage market, the canned beverage market is fully saturated. We saw a lot of different drinks that I can't talk about until the show's air, of course, but that there are people that are doing things differently that hit you with idea after idea of, wow, why didn't I think of that? So what I really learned is, people think, oh, there's no new ideas, there's no opportunities. There are so many, and you need to think differently. Someone who's an entrepreneur who likes to create has to find an innovative, different way of doing things. But at the end of the day, you've got to find out what sets yourself apart from the rest. When I look at junk removal, when I started 1-800-GOT-JUNK, a lot of people offered junk removal, but nobody provided a brand with that clean, shiny truck, friendly uniform mentality. So sometimes it's taking an existing product or service and just doing it in a better and different way.
All right. You gave us a little bit of a hint of what we can expect, just a little bit. But what can people expect on this new season of Dragon's Den, the 19th?
Well, I've been on 2 episodes so far, and my friends, my peers say I'm the nice dragon. I think they're all nice. We had fun together filming, but I think people can expect some innovative ideas, some inspiring Canadian entrepreneurship. I am, one of 5 dragons, but I think the real stars of the show are the entrepreneurs that are pitching us and the courage it took to be there. So I'm excited for everybody that will take a watch of this season 19 of Dragon's Den.
And you have made your father proud, I'm sure.
Well, he was at the premiere. He was watching with us and big smiles. So yes, he's proud today.
That's lovely. Brian, thank you so much. Great to speak with you. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's Brian Scudamore, founder and CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK and the latest dragon on CBC's Dragon's Den. You can watch the latest episode tomorrow on CBC Gem and CBC Television. Great to chat with him the other day. That's it for us. Thanks for all of your calls. Email us bctoday@cbc.ca.